3, 2, 1, we're recording. Welcome to David the Dog Trainer Podcast, episode 52. That's officially one every week for a year. We skipped like 1 week, but we're back. Here we are. I think we kind of started like a week into January anyways.
Yeah.
So technically speaking, I think we kind of did it.
Wait, what is today?
Today's the 6th.
Yeah.
There's no way we started before January.
No, we started in January. Let me see. The first...
When was the first one?
It was on the 4th.
Was it?
Yep, January... Or wait. Oh, the 7th.
Dude.
Yep. We did.
That's it.
We actually did do it.
That's it.
We made it.
I don't know why I was thinking we needed to get it all done by the end of the year, but like hell yeah.
I get it. But
yeah.
we
Hell
technically we got 52 in
We made
1 year. 52 weeks, people.
That's it. Here we are.
Frickin' did it. Darn, you know you should have had some quotes for today.
I should have, you know?
You know, just to like round it back.
Let's see. Here, you talk for a minute while I do. Tell me about your week.
Okay. Well, you're going to look up some good quotes for us. Not a whole lot going on. I feel like pressured now that you said that.
No, just talk. It's fine.
Yeah. No, it's fine. No, finally set my date for my taxes. I'm going to go work with my CPA on next Tuesday because I feel incredibly and honestly kind of lost with QuickBooks at the moment, but
yeah,
it is what it is. Booked a couple new things, doing some fancy gig with Nuevo in the beginning of February. What else? Not a whole lot happened since Sunday. It sucks because it's like we've been doing one like every 3 days for the last 2 weeks. So it's like not much changes throughout that. But I'm gonna got everything over to the person that's doing my website. So
like it.
Hopefully
when's it gonna be done?
Hopefully we'll have that done next week. So she's gonna put everything into place, and then whatever I have to edit, I can just go in there and type it away, kind of like how you did. So,
hell yeah,
that'll be nice to have back. And then after that, it's email time. I'm about to just grind,
blowing up the emails.
I'm about to be salesperson over here.
I like it.
Find anything good yet?
Well, listen, you know, we got one here. This quote is from David Campbell.
Okay.
This kind of sums up this year. Okay. Discipline is remembering what you want.
Ooh. That's a good one. Discipline. Remembering what you want. I like that.
All these other ones are kind of cheesy.
Yeah. I'm cool with sticking with that one. That was a good.
Discipline is remembering what you want.
Yeah.
We want the world to know.
To know.
I don't know where I'm going with that.
What do we want them to know, David?
We want them to know our mission and our goals of helping people.
There we go.
We'll just leave it at that. I don't know.
I like that.
This is too spontaneous for me. Listen, we did it every week. I was pretty confident we were going to be able to do it, but alas, life gets in the way, as it always does. Mm-hmm. And I kind of anticipated maybe we would hit some roadblocks that would derail us, and then with all the time off and the holidays and this and that, would we be able to be consistent? Will we have enough things to talk about? And here's the thing. Listen, there are times that we sit here for a fucking hour, and we're like, I don't know what we're going to talk about. We got to figure it out. And you know what? We hit that fucking R button. We start rolling, and we figure it out. We come up with things to talk about. So, you know, it's cool. We got some plans on how to continue improving the type of content we're bringing your way, but hopefully, the response has been good so far as people liking hearing us just ramble about a bunch of nonsense.
Yep.
And hopefully you guys find some value out of it. And, Hopefully you enjoy not just the talking about dog stuff, but the miscellaneous things where you can get glimpses into our life outside of dogs and life outside of photography and really see the most transparent version of ourselves, right? So we just released, I don't know, did you see the vlog that we just put out the other day?
I did not watch it yet.
I mean, you don't have to watch it, obviously. It's like 46 minutes long.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we did our first vlog. I talked last time about, we're starting to do that. We're going to put out 3 a week here. And these vlogs are literally, what I've been wanting to do for a while, which is Paige literally just follows me around with the camera all day.
Yeah.
For my entire day, she films it. And then the next day, she takes off and she edits it. So right now, she's off today editing it at home to post it.
Wow. Okay.
And it's much more of a production. There's B-roll in it. There's music. There's, captions and subtitles and fancy edits and stuff like that. Like, we're trying to make this much more of like a thing, and the goal with that in the first episode, the first thing I talked about in it is, I want to continue being more and more and more and more transparent into our world. The dog training world is, to some people, I feel like a mystery. It's like there's all this behind the scenes and all this magic and what's going on, what happens in the board and trains and what happens in this and blah, blah, blah. Like, I want to continue to show it all, right? Because my goal through all this content has always been continue to build trust with the client, right?
Yeah.
Because the more trust I have with the client, the more I can get them to commit to the things that I need them to do, and the more success they're ultimately going to find.
Yeah.
Right? This is why we have clients. We have somebody that literally, right before we started this, the reason why I was like, oh yeah, hell yeah. We have a client from New York City that reached out to me last week, found our page, loved our content. She wanted to do virtual sessions with me. And I was like, we could, but like, I'd love to work with you in person. She booked a 4-week board and train for her dog. She's going to drive her dog up here, leave her dog here for 4 weeks. And that all happened because of the trust we were able to build through social media.
Yep.
There is absolutely, there's no person that referred this lady to us.
Yeah.
Because we put out the content we did, we got a great client from that, and we made another sale from it, frankly. I mean, that's why we do these things, and that's why I want to continue to be more and more transparent. The cool thing about the vlog, if you guys haven't watched it already, I absolutely recommend you do so, is it is just jam-packed, chock full of good information. This is us. We're spitballing. We're talking about concepts, this and that. That is like, you want to see the nitty-gritty. You want to see the training. You want to see all the nuances and stuff like that. That's where you're going to get it. We had the first one, a lot of sessions with board and trains that I worked. I did a lesson at the end of the day with somebody who had done training with another board and train program in Cleveland and came to us for an evaluation for boarding, and it wound up being an hour-long evaluation of me helping her fix a lot of the issues she's having and discussing why I think our board and train program is a little bit more effective than other people's. And you could see from the start to the end, like, how much success we got. I mean, it was fantastic.
Yeah.
To little conversations we have with the staff, where we discuss, me and Kayla had a 10-second impromptu conversation discussing introducing a new baby to a board and train that we have in currently, and some questions the owner was having about it. Dude, it's just jam-packed full of like the on-the-fly stuff where I don't have to think about like, wait, all right, I'm going to talk about this, and this is what I'm going to say, and blah, blah, blah. It's just the real shit. And then the one we filmed yesterday, I did a couple of check-ins with our board and train trainers with dogs they're working with, where same deal. You get to see the ins and outs of how we go about problem-solving issues we may be having, how we maintain the standard with all the board and trains that, we're looking to have, discussing those concepts from a trainer and trainer kind of level of like, hey, we're seeing these problems, we work through them this way or whatever, It's just really cool shit, and I'm pretty pumped for that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's really funny because, like what you said, that people are just interested in learning about that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
There's it's kind of a weird guilty pleasure, but there's this YouTube channel I follow. It's this trucker, and he just like, he's like an independent trucker, so he, like, all of his loads are, he has to go get the sale and blah blah blah. And it's like him talking about every little aspect, and it's like 40 minutes and 30.
Dude, I watch all sorts of random shit like that on YouTube.
Yeah, but I mean, he's got like thousands of people that watch him all the time, and it's just like I didn't even think I would be interested. I just saw it in my random feed, and now I subscribed because it was like, this is a really cool, like, I'm never going to experience that, but it's cool to see like what actually goes into the life of trucking. So it's like the same thing. Oh, what's actually like a day-to-day process of seeing a dog getting trained or owning a training company, you know? So, I mean, I think it's a brilliant idea. Like, I mean, people are just naturally curious. So I think even if they're not a trainer, they're going to get enjoyment out of it. Be like, oh, that's cool. I mean, I think that's the whole reason why like Caesar, you know, popped up and got popular, because people are just like, that's pretty cool that you can, you know, get a dog to behave.
And to like the comment about like you were talking about truckers and stuff like that. This is one thing when I work with like newer trainers, or I do like consultations with people that have companies and stuff. One of the big things that we discuss is look outside of your immediate field of work. You know, like all of my, at this point, quote unquote, mentors that I have, right? Or people that I draw inspiration from, like on a business standpoint, are not in the field of dog training, right? Because it all fucking correlates, right? All of the things you realize about how this trucker needs to hustle and go do this and go figure this out and stuff like that, you could equate any of that stuff to what you're trying to do.
Yeah, exactly.
You know? Yes, there's differences, right? It's, you know, his routine is going to be significantly different than your routine, but that pursuit of betterment stands consistent regardless of what industry you're in.
Exactly.
And if you have these dreams of growing and scaling and building something bigger than yourself, you know, looking within your industry is not the way to look usually. Right? Because dog training, for example, there's not very many massive dog training companies out there. I mean, there's a couple of them, obviously, that franchise out and stuff like that. But there's not a lot of them that have built something that's to the caliber of, you know, larger industries that you would see out there, you know? So learning the lessons from a business standpoint of all these other places, and learning, you know, in different types of service-based industries, how people have grown and maintained consistency with their product and stuff like that, you could take all of those lessons, you know, and you could apply them to what you're doing.
Exactly.
So, yeah, I think that's cool. Yeah, I follow all sorts of stuff like that. I think that stuff is really interesting.
Yeah, so I think that's going to become one of the most popular things on the YouTube channel for sure.
Yeah. And the cool thing too is, you know, so there's so much bite-sized content to then pull from it, you know? So like it's 46 minutes of just dense discussing dog training concepts, you know? So like now we could have Ella, our media assistant at the shop, just then rip videos straight from that, you know, making our job 10 times easier. You know, she doesn't have to go out and craft her own things because it's already happening on the fly and it's getting captured, you know?
That's pretty cool too, because now you have, I mean, you don't get as much content out of this, but still it's like this and that. Like together, I mean, you're gonna have so many little pieces that are already recorded that you can just rip and throw right on social.
100%.
Smart idea.
That's the goal. I'm trying to blow up YouTube this year.
Yes,
that's the goal. Trying to think what else is new. Nothing much. Just training dogs. You know, I recently I purchased. I think I said last time, I purchased that Michael Ellis DVD, The Power of Training Dogs with Food, plugging it here. Go fucking buy it. Go watch it if you're a dog trainer or if you want to just learn some really interesting dog stuff. And I gave it to Bridget first. She went home, watched it. She watched it twice already. It's like almost 3 hours long. It's a long DVD. She watched it twice already. She came in with a notebook full of freaking notes and questions about it. So that it completely blew her mind. It's a fascinating DVD discussing dog training concepts. It's where you could really understand where food and where motivation and stuff like that has its place in dog training. And I told her, I was like, you know, there are plenty of things that we don't utilize that are in that. But that's the one DVD that I feel like I could look at and I could say there's nothing in this that I necessarily disagree with. You know, there's nothing in this that I would say, you know, that's wrong or I would do this differently, because it's all Michael Ellis has this like profound way of like deeply being able to understand and describe why he is doing every single thing that he's doing.
Yeah.
You know, and even if it's not currently applicable anymore, it still holds true, you know? Mm-hmm. So, you know, once she finishes with it and gives it back again, I'm going to watch it. I'll write down all my notes from it and we'll really get deep into it. Yeah. But it is a freaking cool DVD. So,
yeah, I'm excited for that. You've talked about those for like ever since I really met you.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to actually delve into that.
Yeah, so that was cool. So today what we're going to do is we're going to get into just reviewing some miscellaneous videos that we found online. This is not, again, for the purpose of ripping people apart or anything. It's just interesting conversation as far as looking at concepts and content that people are putting out there and breaking it down and understanding why we would do something or why we wouldn't do something.
Yeah.
And as always, I will try to do my best to give it a fairly unbiased opinion and try to kind of get into why somebody would do a certain thing or not do a something thing or whatever it may be. So this kind of sparked with, we've been posting a lot of, I don't want to say controversial, but we've been just posting more content lately, right?
Yeah.
And it's really, I was telling you this morning, Josh, it's really sparked a little bit of action in the comments section. We've been getting quite a few people that have been coming out of the woodworks, not necessarily agreeing or liking what we're doing. And most of them are positive-only trainers, or I should say positive-only owners, because frankly, I feel like most of the people that are into positive-only are these very, very committed owners, you know?
Yep.
That don't necessarily own training companies, and not that they have to own a training company, but they've just like really drank the Kool-Aid and committed to that lifestyle.
Yeah.
You know?
100%. Yep.
So, like, we posted one yesterday, stopping dog reactivity with a pet corrector. Now, this was an old video that I posted on this was actually on my personal YouTube channel forever ago. Let me pull it up real quick here. It's so it's my number 4 viewed YouTube video on my personal YouTube channel. It's got 12,000 views on it on YouTube, and it was it blew up when I posted it. So it's a video of this pitty that I did one-on-one lessons with, and this pitty did a 4-session program with me, right? And very reactive dog. That was the primary thing they came for. This was at the time we still offered our leash reactivity / dream walk program. It was just a 4-session program.
Yeah,
and they signed up for it because that was their sole issue, obviously. And I believe this was session 2. This is after we had kind of just taught basic walking skills. Didn't really do much with distractions and stuff, but we were getting into actually addressing the reactivity. And I realized very early on with this dog that the dog had a hypersensitivity to like loud noises and things that may have startled it. So anytime we see a dog like that, typically speaking, a pet corrector, which is all it is a can of compressed air, obviously, that you spray, and it startles the dog out of things.
Yep.
Typically speaking, a pet corrector is going to be a very effective tool with the dog, right? And the reason for that is because if you look at, prong collars, e-collars, stuff like that, as opposed to tools like bonkers or pet correctors, a e-collar or a prong collar is using discomfort in order to stop behaviors, right? So, unfortunately, there are some dogs out there that have a very, very high pain threshold, right? They can tolerate quite a bit of discomfort, especially in states where they're stimulated, right? In situations where they're overstimulated with things. So with some of those types of dogs, a pet corrector or a bonker, because they're not creating physical discomfort, they're simply startling the dog. If the dog is a little bit more kind of nervy, you could help snap them out of things, and you could help de-escalate arousal issues like 10x with them with some dogs, right? Now, some dogs, they don't give a shit about it at all, right? Some dogs, like, you pet correct them and they laugh at it because they don't startle very easily. But for others, it works very effectively. So whatever. So this was a video where I utilized a pet corrector, and I explained a process in which I would have the dog, the second they engaged with the other dog, created forward movement towards the other dog, give a correction for it. And it took 3 corrections. First one, the dog went to go fully explode. Pet corrector totally snapped him out of it. Second video, they were significantly more de-escalated. They still made forward movement, though, and I corrected for it. And the third time, it was like hardly even forward movement, but it was just like the icing on the cake of just snapping that last little bit out of it. And I'll tell you, with this dog, literally that session and the following week at home of the owner implementing this same process, and the reactivity was literally gone. Right? Like, I mean, I'm talking completely gone. Like, no more issues with it. I think we actually only wound up doing 3 of those 4 sessions with the dog. Because the lady was like, we're good. Like I'm not having a problem anymore with this, right? So, obviously, that worked out fantastically. We posted a video of it because these are the types of things where, you know, I kind of explained this to the lady from New York, right? Virtually, we could help people get a lot of the way there, right? And some of these concepts and some of these tricks and tips and tricks are all that people need, frankly, right? Yeah. It's just something to help get them a little bit more control over things if they don't have the funds to be able to commit to training, whatever, you know, and they're tried and true methods, right? Anything that we're posting is not it's not if you do this long enough, the behavior will stop. Anything that we're posting is pretty much, this is how we did it, and this is the end result of it, right? Yeah. And this is why we're going to kind of look at some of these YouTube videos and discuss them, or TikTok videos and stuff like that, because a lot of what you'll see online of other trainers posting is they'll post the process as opposed to the actual like data of this is what works. Yeah. You know, a lot of these general concepts, it's like, well, if you do this for long enough, right? And this A, B, C, or D variable, if you make those adjustments along the way based on how the dog's responding to it, eventually you'll get success. But there's absolutely no timeline as far as this is how you're going to get it. Yeah. And again, so in this video, last night we had somebody commenting on it that was like really giving me a hard time about it, basically saying, you know, that they didn't like that we were putting the dog in a situation that they were uncomfortable with and then punishing them for being uncomfortable, right? And here's the flawed logic of that, right? So by saying that, essentially what we're saying is that us taking our dog for a walk, because there is a potential that the dog will see another dog and start exploding and acting dangerously towards that other dog. If we punish the dog in that moment, it's our fault because we put the dog in an uncomfortable situation by trying to like give them enjoyment and take them for a walk. Yeah. Right? The logic is not there. No, right? Not at all. So that kind of went, and it was this back and forth of, I was like going back and forth of like, you know, like, well, what defines us putting the dog in an uncomfortable situation? Is the dog being in an uncomfortable situation an excuse for them to act dangerously, et cetera, right? It's like kind of a back and forth conversation of like, and it ultimately just ended with the lady saying that her dog struggles with dog reactivity issues, and she doesn't want to punish the behavior because she thinks it will be unfair for the dog, but she's been struggling for who knows how long with this behavior and is currently working on trying to create a more positive association with the other dog. Likely because she read like a Karen Pryor book, or likely because she worked with a positive only trainer that told her that she'll make things worse if she does that, you know, and it just turned into this, okay, cool. Again, back to the conversation. You saw a process of how something may work over time that you've been working on for who knows how long, and you have no intention, or you have no idea of when it's actually going to solve your problem, right? Yes. That sounds so awful to me. Terrible. Right? To say that, you know, for indefinitely, anytime I go for a walk, I have to be on guard because I don't know when my dog may see another dog and explode. Yeah. But I'm not going to punish it because that would be unfair to the dog. But actually, we're both living this miserable life because we're so inhibited of the things that we could actually do. Yeah. Right? As opposed to whether you use it or not, right? We have a way where it showed start to finish how we eliminated it, right? We didn't show you how this will eventually eliminate it. Yeah. We showed you how it eliminated the behavior. It was gone, right? Non-existent anymore. And at that point, again, once you stop that behavior, if you want to start to create a more positive association with things, you can. But we had a YouTube comment just the other day that was kind of similar to this, right? The person asked me, let me see. I think this is it. Was that it? Yeah, okay. So somebody commented in one of our videos, or when your dog resource guards you, which is one of our more popular ones. We get a lot of activity on that one. This person said, this situation sounds like our dog. Rave reviews from daycare for how our red heeler plays so well with other dogs. But if another unknown dog or person approaches our family while we're on a walk, on or off leash, it doesn't matter, then he growls and barks. Here's where we get weird with it, right?
Okay.
Our current thinking is to try to get random people to toss him high-value treats as they approach us and get a bunch of reps in. Get the dog thinking, these strangers are awesome, instead of these strangers want to mess with my valuable owner, right? So here's the thing. This person, they're just trying to problem solve it. So this is not like them like hating on what we're doing.
Yeah.
They're just trying to look for solutions, right? They're like, they understand that they are a resource. They understand that their dog is guarding them, right? So they understand the concept. Now we need to get into what's the solution for it. And I would say for most people, that's a logical thing that they would think, right? I need to get my dog to like these people instead of hate these people, right?
Yeah.
And I said, I like the initiative, but that's going to be a bad approach. The reason for this is because I don't want my dog to have a positive or a negative association with outside people or dogs when I'm out on my walk. I want that association as neutral as possible. I want them not even freaking concerned about other people or dogs.
Yep.
I want them essentially thinking other dogs and people are like furniture when they're out on the walk. They don't provide any stimulation or any fear in association with things, right? And a part of that starts with, we make sure the dogs don't approach, obviously. Every time I hear situations like this, we're trying to solve a problem that we're creating, right? We could create a positive or a negative association all day long, but if those triggers are still coming into their space every time you're out on your walk, you're never going to get anywhere with it, right? You're constantly fighting an uphill battle, even if you're punishing the behavior away, even if you're using your pet corrector, even if you're using the e-collar, whatever, right? You're constantly suppressing the dog's behavior and then triggering them, suppressing it and triggering them. So it's like you're kind of just teaching them to bottle it up and then just explode, right?
Yeah.
So first step is you got to remove that, right? Second step then is once we teach other people to ignore our dog, we teach our dog to ignore other people. That's where the consequences come into play with this kind of stuff. And this is why we always punish the behavior before we start adding positive reinforcement into it, right? I have to know the dog understands you can't mess with these people anymore.
Yeah.
Right? Now, listen. Let's say hypothetically we have a puppy, right, that does not have dog reactivity issues, right? And we're trying to prevent dog reactivity issues. At that point, you don't necessarily need to punish for the behavior. At that point, if you want to take an approach of just engagement around those triggers and teach the dog paying attention to me is more exciting than other people before the dog has had an opportunity to develop this really negative association with other people because they're constantly coming into their space and messing with them and stuff like that, there's no issue with that. And maybe somewhere down the road, if the dog is still too nosy with other people, you could give some corrections for it, but they don't need to be big, major ones.
Yeah.
You could spend the time teaching it first, right? So, in addition to that, obviously, God, where's I going with this? My mind is getting all out of whack here. Okay, so in addition to that, once you've then, if you have a dog reactive dog, once you've punished that behavior and you've made that behavior go away completely, at that point, the rewards should not come from other people. The rewards should then come from you. Because ultimately, again, we want neutral association with everything else, and we want more engagement on us. And you could achieve engagement two ways. You could achieve engagement by the dog understanding if they don't listen to you, there's consequences for that, which is going to keep them more in tune with you. And you could achieve engagement by making sure the dog realizes, in addition to the consequences coming from you, there will be rewards coming from you for appropriate behavior, which will keep their focus on you, trying to look for what do I need to not do to not get corrected, and what do I need to do to get rewarded. And that is a balanced approach to this kind of stuff, right? So anyways, all these techniques we're implementing are for the purpose of starting to work through these types of issues and getting owners understanding that regardless if they do a training program or not, these are the concepts you need to understand in order to start working through this kind of stuff. Right? So yeah, definitely, and that's with any of our stuff, right? Ways to combat separation anxiety that we posted recently. This one I believe Bridget did. I don't even know if I watched this one. Let's see what they say. Let's see. Here, I'm pull this up on TikTok so I can see it better. I don't even know. I don't even follow our TikTok page, frankly.
What?
All right, here we go. Ways to combat separation anxiety. Separation anxiety occurs when a dog becomes anxious because they are separated from you, resulting in home destruction, vocalization, or something else. In order to combat this, you can try these tips. Bed stays or down stays are a good way to create distance from your dog and keep them occupied. What else we got here? This can also help negate anxious behaviors such as pacing or demanding attention. If they do begin to demand attention by jumping or nosing you, ignore them. By giving them attention when they exhibit these behaviors, you're reinforcing them. Instead, refer back to the stability exercises by working on downstays and bedstays. Let's see if there's anything else. Lastly, do not be afraid to utilize your crate. Crates create a safe space for your dog even when you're at home. Only correct for excessive barking or scratching in the crate. So basically breaking this down here. So we have a dog that's in for separation anxiety issues. And in this video, they're kind of discussing, how they're starting to work through this with this dog. One of the primary ways we start doing this is with, like she was describing, the stability exercises. So our bed stays and our down stays. So when we're struggling with separation anxiety, we utilize those bed stays and we showcase here the dog initially being anxious. We showcase implementing that bed stay, and then her literally walking all around the room, leaving the room for excessive periods of time, and the dog obviously just being chill in that situation. Mm-hmm. From there, they discuss, most dogs with separation anxiety push us for attention, obviously. So nosing at us, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Behaviors that aren't necessarily correction worthy because they're not really wrong, but they're still annoying and caused by a dog being essentially very operant and knowing that they could elicit responses out of us, right? So by ignoring those behaviors, what we do is we find that the dog learns over time that none of these behaviors that they're doing get that response out of us, so I should go and occupy myself in another way.
Yeah.
Right? Then you get into the crate issue. Most dogs that have separation anxiety issues, we start to cater to them, right? We don't utilize the crate because they get anxious in there because they're always following us around the house. So we want to obviously implement that crate in situations. Yep. And then while they're in there, actually stop the anxious behaviors as opposed to, oh, they're stressed out in there, we're just going to let them out.
Yeah.
Right? So, and obviously you get into then how do we go about stopping these things? Well, we utilize the e-collar to correct for some of those things. We create boundaries in the crate, stuff like that. But you'll find a lot of different tips and tricks on this kind of stuff, right?
Yep.
So.
Yeah. I don't know if I can give you a quick example.
Give me an example.
So usually Bender is completely oblivious to people. Doesn't care about them at all. Dogs, pretty much the same thing. The one instance that we've had problems was at Pet People because he learned that he gets treats from these people.
Sure.
So now, I have to correct him pretty much every time because he goes in there and he jumps on everybody and gets too excited. And it's because that was the one place that we let another person reward him.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah, you create an association that you go to these places and this happens. I'll give you an example as well, right? So my wife used to take Deli for walks all the time, right? And she would go, back when she lived in Gordon Square, she would go walk to the Phoenix coffee shop and meet friends up there like a couple times a week.
Yeah.
Right? She'd always take Deli. And as soon as she got to Phoenix and the friend was sitting on the park bench or whatever, she would always tell Deli okay to let her go over and say hi to the person, right?
Yeah.
I remember one time we're walking there and I was kind of like, maybe we should not do this as much with her, whatever, that. And again, she's very well behaved. She walks well. She knows her commands. She listens well to them and stuff like that. But we started conditioning in, because Kate was letting her do that so much, we started conditioning in that every time we went there, before she even said okay, once we were 20 feet away from the person, at Phoenix, sitting on the park bench outside, Deli would just freaking launch herself towards that person because she knew something so exciting and so stimulating was going to happen as soon as she got there. And here's the thing. Yes, we should be able to control that drive, and we can control that drive, right? As soon as we started noticing that be a pattern, we corrected her for it and made sure she stopped and made sure she practiced that impulse control moving forward.
Yeah.
But again, it's like an uphill battle of we start conditioning in this association that every time you see another person in this spot, get yourself so freaking jacked up, which is going to make it harder for you to behave yourself in that situation. It doesn't necessarily excuse that you shouldn't behave yourself, but you start asking these questions of like, just because I can get my dog to control myself in this situation, is it am I doing it in a fair way for the dog that's keeping them successful?
Yeah.
Right. So maybe in that situation, you start implementing like I do when I have guests come over, like 20 minutes or so of duration around that person first, so that there's not an immediate sense of stimulation. Right.
Yeah.
Then we go to release, and it's usually a lot calmer at that point. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's something that we'll see too.
Yeah. So don't let it happen.
Don't do it.
Don't do it.
All right. So we're going to get into here next. We're going to get into some of the videos that we see people posting and start discussing them here. So,
Here, let me restart this real quick.
yep.
All right, go ahead.
All right. I gotta find them. So we're going to kind of play like a yay or nay approach here. I think that sounds like the easiest way to do this, right?
All right.
Okay. So first video here. This is a video by South End Dog Training. So anybody who's not familiar with South End Dog Training, they are a company based out of like freaking, where are they out of? The UK. Yeah, they're UK. Okay, that's what I thought. So bear in mind with South End Dog Training here, the UK has some pretty serious restrictions on e-collars, right? So
really?
Yes. Yeah, there are certain places in the UK that they're literally illegal to use. Like you can't use them, right? And that's a whole nother conversation, right? Like you start getting into, we have countries that have banned these tools for no reason. And here's the funny thing, right? And we'll have to do a whole episode on this, like where we actually get into like, the logistics behind why it happened, how it happened, stuff like that.
I'm interested, yeah.
So the UK and like I think Switzerland and like there are a couple of other countries that have full bans on e-collars. You can't use them, right? You could still import them kind of from other places, and there's still people that will use them out there. But for the most part, they're not allowed. Like you get severely fined if you have them, right?
Wow.
And that's funny. So there's a guy, Bart Ballone, who's like a world famous sport dog trainer, right? And Bart has this e-collar that he designed called the Chameleon, which is like a very high quality e-collar. Costs like $1,600, very expensive. But the ones that he sells, because he's based out of the UK as well, the ones that he sells, he has a feature on them. I don't know if he still does. His original models had a feature on them where if you're out training with your dog and you have this e-collar on them, there's a button that you could push on the e-collar that transforms the e-collar into, I think, either a vibrate-only e-collar or a tone-only e-collar, and absolutely nothing that you can do on the remote once you hit that button will switch it back to stimulation, so that if you get caught, you hit that button, suddenly it's like, no, it's just a vibrate collar. Here, play with it,
Wow.
And the only way to switch it back to a stimulation collar is by plugging it into your computer and using a software to switch it back.
Wow.
Genius.
That is
right?
genius.
So they're banned in this. So I say this because we're going to take some of what they say with kind of that like a leeway of they probably can't use e-collars very openly with this kind of stuff, right? So I don't think that so this guy has made a really great name for himself. He is a very, very popular dog trainer. He does a lot of like reaction videos on YouTube and TikTok and stuff like that, where he'll just like rip apart positive only trainers.
Yeah.
Adam Spivey, he's got 1.2 million like views or something like that on TikTok, I think. And he's got a really big YouTube following as well, right? So you had sent me a video of him discussing, stopping dog reactivity. Dog reactivity, it's just the number one behavioral issue. And I feel like there's so many creative approaches to solving this that people try to do because it's so commonly struggled with.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that we create these creative approaches because as dog trainers, it can get very discouraging because the success rate with your clients with dog reactivity is not as close to 100% as you want it to be.
Yeah.
Right? Like we've seen how to stop, like we discussed with the pet corrector. Like there are so many ways to actually solve the problem, but ultimately it's a little bit bigger than just addressing the reactivity at times, right? A lot of times there's a lot of relationship issues that go into play with it. There's a lot of how you start the walk, how you enforce the walk along the way, complete lack of respect on the walk, or in general that causes the dog to feel like when they're out and about, they need to get this overstimulated. because there's so much restraint involved in the walk just in general, and because a lot of times this behavior builds up over the course of years before it gets like really bad and they start seeking out help, these dogs have such a freaking conditioned association with other dogs to just get so jacked up, you know? And, you know, it could be a long road at times to work through. And I think because trainers will start to lose confidence in some people with it, they try all of these different unique approaches to try to get the owner to care more about working through the problem, right? So this is a video where they show a dog that's just on a prong collar, and it's a pit bull, and there's dogs walking by, and the owner's just constantly popping them on the prong and whatever. This dog doesn't seem horrendously dog reactive. I mean, the dog just walked like 6 feet past them and was trying to pull towards it, but wasn't like totally freaking out, losing its mind, like some of the dogs that we have videos of. And basically they say that those constant corrections are unnecessary, which I agree with, right? No amount of pop, 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 pop on the prong collar is really going to do much. If anything, it's just going to keep reminding the dog that they're on this like 1 foot leash, which again creates restraint, creates reactivity, right? So in a normal world, how we would go about addressing something like this is I would look at like the things that this person is doing in the video that are incorrect, and I would agree. The constant pops on the prong collar are incorrect. The expectation that they're constantly popping when the dog even looks at the other dog is incorrect, in my opinion. We've discussed that, obviously. The really short leash in general creates frustration, which is not good, obviously. We want to make sure the dog is on a much looser leash, and we want to give more clear corrections, even if you're going to just use a prong collar, obviously, for engaging in the other dog as opposed to just looking at it. But instead of doing all of those things, he chose to take an approach where he got a flirt pull out, right? Which is basically a long stick that has a toy on a string at the end of it that you get the dog to chase around, right? So you engage prey drive with the dog and you get them engaged on that toy, obviously. And basically they had the dog walking around, and then when he looked at the other dog, they just engaged the flirt pole and started getting this dog chasing it around, right? So here's my issue with this, right? Like, I understand what he's trying to do. It's the whole age-old concept of redirecting, right? Yeah. Your dog wants this, get them to focus on this. Your dog wants this, get them to focus on this, right? So, or creating a more positive association, or a lot of times people will use this mindset of like, we're trying to biologically fulfill the dog because they have this innate drive to chase and to bite and this and that, right? And if we can get them to just channel it on something else or give them this outlet towards other things, it'll solve the problem. And I'm not saying that it clearly got the dog's attention completely off of the other dog, right? But because it is simply a form of management as opposed to solving the problem, meaning if you don't engage the dog into chasing something else, they're going to try to chase the other dog, right? You will never achieve the success of the dog just understanding what not to do then, right? So it's fine initially if you want to do some of that. It's fine as a way to manage the dog through some things. But when it comes to reactivity, the goal should always be to actually stop the problem, to actually get the dog to no longer react at other dogs and understand, regardless of if we bribe you with something else or not, you can't do this behavior, right? And with some dogs, I understand it's hard. With some dogs, I understand you have to have a very deep level of respect out of that dog in order to achieve that in such a high state of drive. But if you can't get that with your dog, you are so shit out of luck. You know? If you are constantly dependent on managing your dog and you're constantly dependent on redirecting your dog onto other things and coaxing them to not make mistakes as opposed to getting them to respect you enough to not make those mistakes because you don't want them to, there's bigger problems. In my opinion, right? And I feel like this one in particular, out of any of the ones that we're going to talk about right now, is probably the most controversial because there are a lot of trainers in the balance training world that kind of adopted this philosophy of starting to try to work through things by channeling the dog's energy in on other things, right? The world is not controlled enough, just like for positive only training to work. for this kind of stuff to work, right? You're not going to have room in a city to bring a freaking flirt pole with you and get your dog to run around and chase other things. And because you're not actually stopping the dog reactivity, what happens if you get the dog to chase that flirt pole, and suddenly their focus refixes on the other dog? And because now you've amped up the dog and jacked them up into this crazy chase and grab state of mind, suddenly they just redirect that onto the other dog at that point.
And now it's even worse.
And now it's worse because you have the dog now in a 10x more amped up state of mind.
Yeah.
Right? I just think that any of these types of approaches without teaching the corresponding opposite of what not to do is just not going to be the answer.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. Again, if you want to take the balance approach and you want to use a flirt pole or a toy or something like that to reinforce the dog's behavior post stopping the behavior, right? Or at least suppressing it enough where the dog is starting to have like a little bit more of an understanding of things.
Yeah.
I don't have any issue with that, you know?
Yeah.
But taking an approach of this being the way to work through it by itself is just not the answer.
Yeah.
So that's one of them. Now, again, South End Dog Training, I do think they're a good company. I don't have any issues with them outside of it, you know? Let's see if they got anything else here. So this one is... Okay, so let's see what this is, because this kind of sounds like it might be opposite to what they just said. So this one is how to break focus without toys or food.
Ooh.
Let's see what they have to say with this. So he's got a German Shepherd that he's working with. Looks like the dog is focused on something ahead of them, and as the dog focuses on it, he does spatial pressure to move the dog away, right? So basically what he does is dog's walking this way. He does a quick turn into the dog and a quick walk into them, right? Typically speaking, most people that do so, that's kind of a Caesar move, right? Yeah. Caesar does the whole, like, claim your space, hey, right? Like, hey, right? That startle move that he does to get dogs to back up, right? Yeah. So... not a huge issue with this, but we've talked about this before when we discuss Caesar with stuff, right? Yeah. You get into an approach like that, very, very few clients are ever going to be able to effectively do that, right? They're not going to be able to have the confidence and the persona to like authoritatively push their dog out of their space.
Yeah, 100%.
Right? So again, difficult for owners to be compliant with, obviously, right? And then he said no toys or food, but he said after you do the spatial pressure, move the dog away from the trigger and reward. You're probably going to be using a food or a toy for that. I don't know how else you would reward the dog, obviously. This one I'm probably going to agree with. What is it? Hang on. So this one I agree with, obviously. So this one, let's see if there's...
When your dog's eating, make sure you stick your hand in their bowl, take their bowl away, touch them, hug them.
Adam, even I know that's mate.
Let me finish.
Oh, sorry.
If you want your dog to have food aggression, these are all things that still in 2022, trainers will recommend for you to do, or people think it's acceptable to do. Yeah? Leave the fucking dog alone when it's eating. If you want to build...
The accent really is the best.
I know.
A positive association to putting your hand near the bowl or things like that, walk past, drop a handful of chicken in it. Do that on a daily basis. Hand going towards the bowl will create a positive association. Yeah? Teach your dog a solid leave it. Teach your dog a solid recall. Right? And then if you need to get your dog away from the bowl... 2 of those commands proved you'll have no issues. Don't let people invade your dog's space when it's eating, and you will never have food aggression with your dog.
I would agree with all that. Here's the thing, though. I don't really see many trainers recommending that anymore. Like, that was like the age-old thing, though, that like every freaking owner would come in and say. I would ask them, I was like, well, do you have any food aggression issues? They'd be like, no, I made sure that when the dog was young, I would mess with them. I'd take that bowl away. They would just fuck with the dog while they're eating. And again, almost every food aggression case that I see come in, the owners have tried that before. And they've either gotten bit or almost gotten bit.
Yeah.
And it didn't work out very well.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's one of those things. And even the thing that he said about like throwing the chicken into the bowl and stuff like that, even that, like, it's just not necessary, right?
No.
You want to create a positive association with being near the bowl. Just be near the bowl without messing with the dog. And just have them, again, and not everything needs to be a positive or a negative thing, right? I just want a neutral association. My dog, you know, food aggressive dogs don't attack chairs that are next to them while they're eating.
Yeah.
Why is that the case? Because the chair doesn't pose a fucking threat.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So don't do anything that's going to potentially be perceived as a threat, and you won't have the issues also.
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly.
And then same deal, like you said, if you need to get the bowl away from the dog, you need to get the object away from the dog. This gets back to you have to have the discipline established enough with the dog to be able to create those consequences.
Yep.
Let's see what else this guy's got. It's this one. This one says you need this if you have aggressive dogs.
It's a break stick. Not to be mistaken for a knife. It's not sharp, can't slice anything. It's a break stick. If you go out with your dogs, okay, or you've got an aggressive dog or you've got multiple dogs, you should have one of these. What it is if a dog's got hold of another dog, this goes in the side of their mouth and you turn and it opens their mouth. So if a dog's got hold of another dog, this is the quickest way of getting them off the bite. And it doesn't hurt the dog, but it goes in the jaw, twists. It's one of those things you should consider carrying around with you, okay? Because you hope to never need it. I've had one of these for ages, not had to use it. You hope to never need it, but it's one of those things, it's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. You can get these from Amazon, the police use them, they're absolutely fine, 100% legal. Like I said, from Amazon, it's a break stick. Easiest way of getting a dog off the bite.
Okay, so a break stick basically is a long, flat tool that if your dog is latched on to something and you need to get them off of it, you wedge it in their mouth, turn it, and it opens their mouth up, right? That's kind of what he's describing here if you have aggressive dogs. Now, again, I would disagree that a break stick is the most effective way of breaking up a seriously latched on dog fight for a couple of reasons. One, your accuracy with needing to drive that thing into the dog's mouth can, one, be very difficult to get it in the right spot. Two, could piss the dog off quite a bit and cause them to turn around and redirect on you, right? And three, once you kind of get that thing turned, it's just going to, for a split second, get their mouth open, right? Which means that as soon as they get that mouth open, they're going to try to re-grab, right? And most damage happens in serious dog fights or serious bites when re-grabbing happens, right? They're latched onto something, they kind of pull away, they open for a second, then grab again, open for a second, then grab again, right? Because you're getting more and more puncture wounds, more and more tearing at that point, depending on what it is, right? I have personally always recommended for everybody that the safest and easiest way to break up a dog fight, again, like he said, emergency situations. We don't want to ever have to do this, but if you do, it's important to know, excuse me, is to use a collar, some sort of slip collar that's going to create tension around the dog's neck and cut off their airflow. Reason why I recommend this, you could do it from a safe position. Let's say your dog is latched onto another dog, right? And something happened on a walk, an off-leash dog ran at them, or another off-leash dog is latched onto your dog, right? If they have a leash on and you just pick straight up and hold on it, what's going to happen is it's going to cut off the airflow to the point where the dog needs to open their mouth to try to breathe. And what happens is once they open their mouth, because that tension is still being applied, where in the case of a break stick, once they open their mouth, the break stick is no longer there, right? They can't re-close down again, right? So you've allotted yourself a longer period of time of once they let go to then actually remove the dog from the situation. And again, if you're doing it with a leash, you could grab from this far away where if they do try to turn and redirect, they're just going to get the leash. They're not actually going to get you. Where again, the break stick, your hand needs to literally be here, you know, in order to turn and open that mouth. All right, let's see what else we got. All right. This one is called, This Makes Reactivity So Much Worse.
Here's something a lot of dog owners don't think about when they've got a reactive dog. How that dog behaves in the house will dictate how that dog behaves outside the house. If you allow your dog to go running to the back of the garden every single time you open the door and it's barking its head off, if you allow your dog to sit
The garden.
barking at everything that walks past, you're allowing your dog to successfully practice reactive behavior. is becoming reinforced, your dog then will exhibit this outside. So make sure you're not letting those behaviours slide in the house when there's nothing going on, because that could be the very reason why you are struggling to make a dent in your dog's reactivity outside the house. Here's something.
Agreed.
Yeah.
So we always say dog reactivity is more than just the walk. This is why we actually no longer offer that 4-session leash walking program, because a lot of people, we would get good success with it, but then they'd have all these issues elsewhere that they wouldn't be addressing. That would start trickling back into the outside walk again, right? So here's the thing, right? If we look at the main culprit of dog reactivity as the frustration from the leash, right? But like he's saying, the barking out the window, right? The barking in the backyard at other dogs and other people walking by, and us not addressing those things, that is essentially a more minor version of the dog reactivity you're seeing on a leash, right?
Yeah.
It's not as escalated as what you're typically seeing on the leash because there's not as much restraint involved. There's still a barrier, but it's not this short barrier of I only have 3 feet. It's I have this entire freaking yard. I just can't cross this line kind of thing, right? So if we address it there, what happens is, let's say our leash reactivity is like a level 10 and our house reactivity is like a level 7, right? And let's say we address the house one first before we worry about the leash one, and we bring that down to like a 3. That's also going to bring the leash reactivity down then to like a 7, which is going to make that easier to address. It's going to be less intense, right? So yeah, you have to see a lot of these behaviors as the same, right? And I've equated to, a lot of leash reactivity is also prey drive related things. I've talked about this before, and people got frustrated with it, right? Chasing squirrels, chasing deer, things like that. A lack of impulse control and the urge to launch towards something that they want to get to is going to heavily contribute to that dog reactivity as well. So we want to make sure we're addressing those things too. See if we got anything else interesting. Again, I do like this guy's page. Like, he does post good stuff. I think in the grand scheme of he's got 380,000 followers on Instagram, right?
Yeah.
Dude's doing well for himself.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And in the grand scheme of some of the higher profile dog trainers out there that are putting out these bite-sized pieces of content, he is not putting out the worst information by any means.
Yeah.
Some of it I would do differently, and some of it I don't necessarily agree with from the standpoint of I just don't think it's going to transfer very well to owners and into the real world. I don't necessarily think any of it is bad, right?
Yeah.
Ooh, here's a good one. If a dog charges at you in an aggressive manner, stand your ground. Let's see what this is. So there's a video of looks like a St. Bernard barking at a guest. And the caption is, don't try this at home. 9 out of 10 dogs are bluffing and just scared. However, you instantly empower the dog if you run away or show fear. You see how weak the dog is when you do challenge them and how quickly they back down. So this guy's just kind of leaning against the kitchen counter right now while the dog's just up in his face, barking at him.
Yeah.
And he's kind of lunging at him and stuff. I mean, for most people, this would be extremely intimidating.
Sully.
I'm not sure what's happening here. So the guy that he was barking at, just he's still leaning with his hand in his pocket. He's like, enough. Enough. He's not even looking at him when he's saying enough. So then the owner kind of tried to call him, and he turned for half a second, then went back to the guy. I'm not really sure what I'm watching right now. And that's the end of the video. Okay, so that one, we're going to give that one a nay.
Yeah.
I don't think anything was accomplished in that video.
Yeah.
I think that when you look at a situation like that, I'm not sure what the educational purpose of was it, because there wasn't really any ground being standed upon, you know? Like, he was kind of just, like, leaning against the counter, almost trying to, like, not do anything, right? So, like, if you look at, I would say I learn a lot from watching dogs interact with other dogs. And if you look at two dogs challenging each other, right? Mm-hmm. Standing your ground would be like, you know, if I'm like this with you and you're like this with me, it'd be, hey, bud, not backing down kind of thing.
Yeah.
Right? That was not standing your ground. That was dog has backed me into a corner and I'm just kind of like trying not to look at them and just enough, right? And he couldn't even get any further away, right?
Yeah.
And basically was trapped, you know? Like if he couldn't move forward anymore because that would have triggered the dog to lunge more at him because the dog wasn't like really blocking in that situation.
Yeah,
right?
no
He
way.
was trying to back him into a corner, right?
Yeah.
There's this thing, you know, like there's a difference between, you know, teaching like non-reinforcement of behaviors, right? So the dog realizing that, let's say I was standing in the middle of the room and the dog was trying to push me away from, or let me give a better example here. Let's say a dog is really guarding its owner, right? And I walk up to the owner, right? And the dog starts kind of barking at me really aggressively, and I stand my ground there and I don't back up when they start barking at me.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not like cowering away, but I'm not moving away either, right? Eventually, hypothetically, over a lot of time, that dog will start to learn that that behavior is not making me go away, which will cause them to start to try something else, which typically speaking, we'll see the dog then create distance and move away, right? The fault with this is, again, if you get like that's not what was going on there, right? That was just the dog was barking at him, and it was kind of like what most people will tell guests that come into their house when they have a dog like that. They'll be like, just ignore them. Don't move. Let them come up to you and smell you and stuff like that. Yeah. That is the dog realizing they're still in control of stuff. That is that's not standing your ground.
Yeah, no.
And if you try to further challenge them and you try to actually move into their space or something, which would be actually standing your ground and claiming your ground, that's going to put the dog immediately in fight or flight of like they need to either challenge you back or they need to move away.
Yeah.
Right? So nothing really was accomplished in that video, in my opinion. All right, what else we got here?
Do you feel like, keeping in mind because they can't really have e-collars, that's kind of what he's trying?
I don't know. You know, so the thing is, they still have prong collars on all the dogs in these videos.
Yeah.
There's still other tools that they could utilize for this kind of stuff. You know, and one other point about that video was stuff like that. It's the person that was standing there, like watching it happen. If you really if you get charged by an aggressive dog, like that's that person's responsibility to address that problem.
Oh yeah,
right. It's not your responsibility to like stand your ground and make the other person go away. So I don't know. You know, again, I'm just reacting on the fly to this kind of stuff here. All right, let's see. If your dog is reactive, watch this.
Right. When she does that, up, turn and face, get her to sit. Sit. That's it. Then relax. Right. Bring her back into the sit. Sit. That's it. Then walk that way and go. Come on, let's go. Right, and let her use her nose. Let go of the lead with your left hand because I want her to use her nose. Right. When she does that, up, turn and face, get her to sit.
All right, so very reactive dog here, obviously. What they're doing is they're doing an old approach of essentially using the leash to create negative reinforcement and put the dog into another position. So the dog starts reacting, they turn, they pull up on the leash until the dog gets into the sit, they release the pressure when the dog gets in the sit. Here's the thing, right? You get into a couple of, there's conflicting ways here on this page of how to work through these issues, and this is the kind of stuff that I think gets confusing. And with some of these kind of more TikTok popular trainers, they're trying to put out a lot of, this is my problem with the say it once, right? They put out all of this different content, and they're trying to create all of these different unique videos that are going to appeal to different people for the purpose of likes, obviously.
Yeah.
But the issue is they're conflicting, right? So in the video we watched originally, he's talking about don't work, I think he said in the caption, like, don't work against the dog, work with the dog, meaning like don't try to punish away the behavior, redirect the behavior and channel it onto something else. But in this case, they're taking an approach of not channeling it onto something else, but actually punishing for the behavior, right? So it's like, which do we do, you know? And then ultimately, again, this approach of using the leash, like the leash is one of the least effective tools when it comes to reactivity, again, because the reactivity is typically stemming from the leash.
Yeah.
So let's see what else we got. All right, here we go. Your dog should be on this until it's trained. No excuses.
This strongly enough, right? This is one of the most simplest inventions in the world. It's
a leash.
Lead. Yeah. People think this is just for outside, although some people think that they don't need this when they're outside and their dogs get hit by a car, or their dog runs over to the wrong dog and gets attacked, or their dog goes missing because they think they can take this off the lead when it's not trained. This is to keep control of your dog, okay? They do indoor leads, puppy leads, lightweights, designed to go under doors and not get tangled on things, yeah? You have a lead. That way, you can take control of your dog very, very easily. I cannot...
Bingo.
Yeah.
I'll give that one a 100% agree there.
Thumbs up there.
I like that video, right? Keep your dog on a fucking leash, right? One, when they're outside, obviously just keep your dog on a fucking leash. But inside, we've talked about until your dog is trained. Like it said, no excuses, right? Waffles is on a leash all the time in the house until he is fully trained, right? Because that's why we don't have issues with him right now. For that exact reason. Because he's on a leash at all times in the house, we don't have any issues with him. Because we can manage absolutely anything that comes up.
Yeah.
And now he's transitioning to the e-collar. We got an e-collar on him. So when he's on the e-collar, he doesn't need to be on the leash anymore. But that's because we still have direct control over him. That's the point of the leash.
Yeah.
That's the point of the e-collars. You have direct control over your dog to communicate and train them when you have that on. What else we got? Oh. What is this? This one's got a sensitive content warning.
Ooh.
See it. See video. Uh-oh.
But her dog had no recall. As a result...
This gets back to exactly what we were just talking about. Keep your dog on a fucking leash. So basically what's happening in this is there's like a horse and carriage ride going on, and there's a pit bull that is off-leash running at the horse.
Yep, I've seen this video.
A little girl, oh boy, has been left traumatized. A horse injured. A dog, life-threatening injuries.
Jesus.
Watch it again.
Ooh, that dog
and
got
again.
really
and
kicked
again.
there.
This is what happens when dogs are let off the lead with no recall. If you let your dog...
Yeah.
Yeah.
You get into like this stuff past just like logical things. Like you don't realize how unsafe some of this stuff is. Even if you were in the right when you say, well, my dog's great with other people and other things like that, so they shouldn't have to be on a leash. They should be able to do whatever the fuck they want. Well, even if you're right about that, if your dog gets killed by getting kicked in the head by a horse, are you still right? You know what I mean? Is it still worth kind of standing on your high horse about some of that kind of stuff?
No pun intended.
Yeah, seriously. I don't know.
But no.
Rough stuff. Let's see if we find one more here. This one's called If Your Friendly Dog Can't Sit Next to a Strange Dog Calmly, It's Not Been Socialized Properly. Let's see what he's got to say.
Yeah? Just because Ted's there doesn't mean you can say hello. Yeah, let's get a bit closer to Ted, shall we? Stop. Sit. Whining, because he wants that. Sit. Because he wants to play. See the bouncing? Yeah. Because he doesn't know how to be this close to a dog without saying hello.
Yeah.
But sometimes, what if Ted's not friendly?
Yeah.
He doesn't fucking know that because he thinks every dog in the world should say hello to him. Yeah. That is what happens when you over-socialise a dog.
He put it in a caption here. When dogs think dogs equal play, 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 and nothing else, quickly problems can arise.
When you don't teach social ignorance, when you don't sit. Sit.
I don't know about all these repeated commands.
Yeah.
When you don't teach them, it's okay to ignore other dogs. Good things come from ignoring other dogs. Social ignorance comes first, then play. So if I want to go here, what? She's going to want to say hello, but look, body into him to create that space. Don't cut her from in front of me. Stop there. Sit.
I would agree. Again, we get into another one. You know, having a friendly dog is the very, very, very first step of things, right? So, like, let's say people got a friendly dog and they think just because I have a friendly dog, I don't need training. Training's just for bad dogs, right?
Yeah.
But your friendly dog that doesn't have impulse control, that constantly is getting themselves into trouble, that is what everybody says, I trained my dog myself. They're so well trained already, right?
Yeah.
But really, the dog is not well trained. The dog is just friendly. And because they're friendly, they let the dog do whatever they want and call it being well trained, right?
Yep.
They have the dog off leash forever and let the dog run up to everything because they're so well trained that I can have them off leash when in actuality, it's just a friendly dog.
Yep.
That creates problems. So, a lot of stuff here. I mean, we can get into these all day long, obviously. But we're not going to do that. We're just going to focus on his page today. We'll focus on somebody else's next time.
Yeah.
So South End Dog Trading, again, not taking any intentional jabs at them. Obviously, this is all in the purpose of educational and just discussing training concepts, right?
Yeah.
But keep these things in mind as you're watching some of these videos. I always try to, even our own content, look at things strategically, right? And look at things with kind of like a grain of salt and try to ask myself, like how much of this is real life versus how much of this is for the purpose of a video,
Yeah. I think you made a great point when there's contradicting posts.
Sure.
And that's his livelihood is TikTok or whatever, YouTube. I mean, and if he feels like it's monotonous, he's just trying to throw videos out.
Yeah.
So like you said, you have to keep that in mind.
Yeah, you really, especially as a dog trainer, like our viewpoint on thing has obviously changed over the years. But as far as the progression of our training programs, everything has stayed pretty consistent as far as our philosophies on things and how we go about working through problems. And yes, we have different tools at our disposal to use, but the deeper approach of how we kind of combat behavioral issues and combat training dogs has always stayed consistent with stuff. Right?
Yeah.
So that's one thing we kind of pride ourselves in with this. So, interesting. We'll continue to kind of look at other pages like that, see what other people have to say, and discuss what we like and what we don't like. So,
boom.
We'll wrap that up on that.
Yeah,
Doobie.
It's good stuff. I like peering into other training companies or trainers.
Yeah,
I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, you can, and just from that, I mean, you can tell how, I don't know, how diversified like the training world is. Sure. How many people have their own approach to a certain something, Yep. And I could see why that could be confusing for a potential person that needs training. It's like, well, this person's, that I've watched says all these things, but this person has a totally different approach,
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it could be a really confusing landscape when you're trying to find the right trainer for your dog.
You are correct. You are correct.
There's a lot of good stuff, and then there's a lot of bullshit you have to wade through.
I would agree with that. So.
All right.
Last.
Yeah. Go ahead. No, sorry. Yeah, you can find me at Josh Dubay Productions on Instagram. Website will be done next week.
Next week.
I hope.
Oh, wow. Very cool. Catch us at miraclecanintraining.com. Check out the Miracle Canine Training YouTube channel where you typically watch this podcast. Yes. Start watching some of those vlogs. See what you like about them. Give us your feedback. See what else you want to see on it. And let us know. We'll try to continue highlighting all of those different things. Until next time, see you.